What is a city, if not a living heartbeat in the desert? Imagine the land between the Tigris and Euphrates, where rivers twist like silver serpents under the blistering sun, and reeds whisper secrets to the wind. Here, the soil itself trembles with the promise of civilization. From these banks, a tower of clay and mud rises toward the sky, Uruk, the jewel of Sumer, where walls glint with the glow of countless suns and the streets echo with the clatter of commerce and ceremony. Beneath the roar of the marketplace, a question pulses in every corner: who will shape this world? Is it the priest who commands the heavens, or the king whose shadow stretches over the city like a storm cloud? And what of a man whose name will echo through millennia, Gilgamesh, a ruler feared, admired, whispered about in the alleys and palaces alike? Here begins a tale of ambition and friendship, of mortals confronting the gods, and of a city that refuses to be silent. Uruk does not merely exist, it lives, it dreams, it challenges the heavens themselves. And in this city of dawn, the story of the first hero is about to unfold. The morning sun ignites the walls of Uruk, turning mud bricks into molten gold. The city hums with life. Merchants call across crowded squares, herders guide flocks along narrow lanes, and children dart like sparks between towering ziggurats. At the heart of this city, a king sits atop his throne, a figure 2/3 divine, 1/3 human. Gilgamesh, the very embodiment of Uruk's ambition, strides through the palace courtyard with the weight of destiny in his step. The people watch, a mixture of awe and fear twisting their faces. For though he is their king, he is also a tyrant. Fields are taxed, labor demanded, and the cries of the commoners rise like smoke over the city walls. His palace glistens in marble and cedar, yet outside, the streets run with tension, as if the city itself holds its breath. Yet destiny has a rhythm, and the universe has a way of balancing its scales. Beyond the city gates, in forests untamed and rivers uncharted, a wild man stirs. Enkidu, born of clay and wilderness, roams with the herds, his hair tangled with reeds, his eyes bright with untamed curiosity. He is a mirror to Gilgamesh's excesses, a force of nature destined to collide with the king's ambition. In the great ziggurat, priests chant hymns to gods whose names tremble on human lips: Anu, Enlil, Ishtar, gods who watch the mortal struggle with a detached curiosity. The city's life, its festivals, its markets, even its walls, are infused with their will. Uruk is more than a city, it is a theater where mortals dance to the script of divinity, unaware that one man's actions will echo far beyond the mud and reed of its streets. Gilgamesh, arrogant yet magnetic, listens to whispers of rebellion. The people murmur of a man from the wild, strong enough to match the king in might, cunning enough to challenge his rule. The tension tightens like a drawn bow. And so, in the shadow of Uruk's walls, the stage is set. Two forces, civilization and wilderness, pride and freedom, are hurtling toward collision. As twilight descends, the city glows under a molten sky, a labyrinth of light and shadow. Torches ignite, the calls of night birds pierce the air, and the ziggurats cast long, ominous shadows over the bustling streets. In this hour, the destiny of a city, and the fate of a man poised between godhood and mortality, begins to crystallize. From here, the story will sweep beyond palace gates and riverbanks, into forests, battles, and journeys that test the limits of life itself. But for now, Uruk stands, resilient, magnificent, and alive, a city of dawn, awaiting the epic that will define not just a man, but the very idea of heroism. The winds shift, carrying whispers of the wild, and the first tremors of a friendship that will shake the foundations of the world. And in that whisper, one truth emerges: Uruk will never be the same again. The sun rises over Uruk, gilding the city's walls with a fleeting fire that dances across mud bricks and carved reliefs. The streets pulse with life, traders shout, children scamper through the alleys, and the scent of baked bread mingles with the dust of 1,000 footsteps. At the center of this vibrant chaos stands Gilgamesh, larger than life, moving with a confidence that borders on divine. His muscles ripple beneath the sun, his eyes shine with ambition, and yet, beneath the brilliance, there is an unease, a subtle tension that whispers of a man searching for meaning beyond power. Gilgamesh is no ordinary king. The priests remind the people that he is two-thirds God, a being sculpted from divine will and mortal flesh. His strength can topple walls, his voice commands obedience, and his gaze can quiet a crowded square. But the other third, the human part, claws at him relentlessly. It is curiosity, desire, and fear, all intertwined, pulling him toward deeds both noble and reckless. This tension defines him, a ruler who must balance the immensity of his gifts against the fragile hearts of those he governs. The people of Uruk whisper of his feats and failings alike. They speak in hushed tones of his competitions of strength in the palace courtyard, the relentless hunts, and the contests of skill that leave men awestruck or broken. Some call him a tyrant, others, a protector. But none can ignore him. In the city's markets, mothers hush children with the tale of the king who can wrestle lions. In the temples, priests craft hymns that intertwine his name with the gods. And yet, for all his might, there is emptiness in Gilgamesh's gaze when night falls. The ziggurats, their clay steps glowing under the moon, offer no counsel. The city sleeps, yet he walks alone through corridors lined with tapestries depicting battles, feasts, and celestial omens. He questions his mortality, wrestles with his ego, and senses a restlessness that not even power can quell. For all his godly blood, he is haunted by the one truth that no wall or army can shield him from: he will not live forever. The city itself reflects this duality. Uruk is magnificent, a testament to human ingenuity, yet it is also fragile. Its walls can be breached, its people can rise or revolt, and the rivers that nourish it can turn against it in sudden floods. In many ways, Uruk mirrors its king, a mixture of strength and vulnerability, grandeur and impermanence. Gilgamesh walks through its streets, feeling this reflection in every stone, every face, every whisper of wind that carries the scent of distant reeds and the promise of the unknown. It is in this tension that the gods intervene. Ishtar watches from her temple high above, her eyes glinting with divine calculation. The heavens murmur of Gilgamesh's arrogance and potential, and the city itself feels the weight of a destiny too vast for a single mortal to contain. His journey, the stories say, will not be of kingdoms won or walls built, but of challenges that test the limits of life, friendship, and mortality itself. And so, the stage is set for an encounter that will change Uruk forever. Beyond the city's gates, in the vast wilderness, a force stirs that rivals Gilgamesh's own strength. Enkidu, born of the earth and untamed waters, moves with a freedom the king has never known. The fates, invisible yet unyielding, begin to weave their threads, drawing the mortal and the wild toward a collision that will shape the story of the first hero. As night descends and torches flare along Uruk's streets, the city seems to hold its breath. Gilgamesh, towering above his people, feels a stirring, a promise of challenge, of companionship, and of a life that will demand more than a throne or a crown. The pulse of the city matches the pulse of the king, restless, relentless, and ready to surge toward a destiny written in both clay and stars. With this anticipation hanging in the air, the next chapter of the epic begins, not with a conquest, but with the meeting of two forces, two spirits, two halves of a story that will resonate far beyond the mud walls of Uruk. The king, magnificent and flawed, is about to face the mirror the wilderness has sent him, and nothing will ever be the same. The sun scorches the rooftops of Uruk, turning mud bricks into radiant heat that shimmers above the streets. Below, the city pulses with life, but also with unease. Markets bustle with traders shouting over one another, children weep between carts, and the scent of roasted grains mingles with the tang of dust and sweat. Yet beneath the vibrant chaos, there is a tension that refuses to be ignored, a tension that threads through every alley, every doorway, every glance exchanged among Uruk's citizens. Gilgamesh strides through the city like a living storm, his presence impossible to ignore. His footsteps echo on the stone and clay streets, commanding attention even before his voice cuts through the din. He is the embodiment of power, two-thirds God and one-third man, but with that gift comes a shadow, a hunger for glory that has grown unchecked, a desire to test the limits of those who serve him. The people murmur of unfair taxes, of labor demanded at the edge of exhaustion, of walls built and rebuilt under relentless pressure. Mothers whisper warnings to their children, merchants curse beneath their breath, and even priests exchange anxious glances as the king passes. Yet Gilgamesh is not cruel in the simplicity of evil. He is a man intoxicated by his own strength. Games of skill, hunts that stretch for days, competitions of endurance, all are meant to display his unmatched power, to prove his dominion over both the mortal and divine. And still, the city watches, caught between fear and awe, unable to turn away from a spectacle that is as mesmerizing as it is terrifying. From the shadow of the forests beyond Uruk's walls, the murmurs of another presence rise. Enkidu, wild and untamed, has felt the echoes of the city's unrest. He hears the cries of oppressed animals, the pain of laboring men, the heartbeat of a land stretched too thin. Born from the earth and the waters, he is strength in its purest, most unrefined form, untouched by the corrupting lures of civilization. Where Gilgamesh embodies order forced to extremes, Enkidu is chaos personified, a reminder of the natural balance that even kings cannot command. The first confrontation is not of swords, but of observation. Traders speak of the wild man glimpsed near the city gates, herders whisper of a figure moving with impossible speed, and the city itself seems to tremble as stories grow into legend. Within the palace, advisors and priests debate the king's next move. Is he to fear this force? Challenge it? Or does fate demand something greater, a meeting that will alter the course of Uruk forever? Gilgamesh, ever restless, senses the stirrings of change. One evening, as the amber light of sunset floods the palace walls, he casts his gaze toward the forests. In that moment, the first threads of destiny entwine him with Enkidu. The king, confident yet restless, feels the first whisper of mortality, the first hint that his power, immense though it may be, cannot quell the universe's unpredictable tides. Night falls, and the city's lights shimmer like fireflies against the darkened sky. The cries of the people, some of despair, some of hope, carry through the streets, blending with the distant howl of wolves in the outskirts. It is a symphony of unrest, a prelude to the coming collision. Uruk, magnificent and flawed, holds its breath, as if the walls themselves know that the days of unchecked authority are nearing an end. Within the palace, Gilgamesh retires to his chambers, yet sleep eludes him. His mind races through victories and excesses, through the fleeting applause of his people and the silent murmurs of dissatisfaction. The echoes of the city, of the river, and of the wind whisper that power alone cannot sustain a legacy. Somewhere in the wilderness, Enkidu grows stronger, a counterbalance that will test the king's might, his morality, and his very understanding of what it means to be human. As the moon climbs high, casting a silver glow over Uruk, the tension becomes almost tangible. The city sleeps, yet it dreams of upheaval. The king dreams, yet he is haunted by an invisible challenge. And in the forests beyond, Enkidu moves like a shadow, a force of nature that answers no crown, fears no god, and obeys only the primal rhythms of life itself. The dawn promises more than light, it promises confrontation. Gilgamesh's rule, formidable as it is, will face a test that the walls of Uruk cannot shield him from. The people's whispers are no longer mere complaints, they are a prelude to change. And the city, majestic and relentless, watches as the first steps of a friendship and a legend begin to stir on the horizon. The tides of destiny are rising. Uruk, a city of marvel and unrest, stands on the brink. And in that quiet tension, between tyranny and the wild, the epic begins to gather its breath for the storm that is coming. The wilderness stretches beyond Uruk like an endless sea of green and gold, where the wind carries the scent of earth, water, and freedom. Rivers curl through the plains, and reeds sway with whispered secrets of ancient times. Here, in the shadow of civilization, life moves to its own rhythm. Predators stalk silently, herds roam without restriction, and the night sky blazes with stars untouched by city lights. This is the kingdom of Enkidu, a realm where he reigns as both guardian and participant, a creature of the untamed forces that Gilgamesh has yet to encounter. Enkidu is born of clay and water, sculpted by the gods to walk the earth as a counterpart to the king of Uruk. His muscles ripple with the raw strength of the wild, his senses attuned to every rustle in the reeds, every tremor in the earth. He drinks from rivers as if they were lifeblood, races across plains with the wind at his back, and wrestles lions for sport, testing himself against the world that created him. Unlike Gilgamesh, his power is not displayed for applause or fear. It exists in harmony with nature, instinctual and untainted. For years, he lives among the herds, moving like a shadow through the forests and rivers. Animals follow his lead. He becomes a protector of the untamed world, striking down hunters who would harm the innocent. Stories of this wild man begin to drift toward Uruk, carried by merchants and travelers, growing in magnitude with each retelling. Gilgamesh hears whispers of a force in the wilderness equal to his own strength, a being who could match him blow for blow, thought for thought. The king's curiosity is ignited, a flame that burns brighter than any torch in the palace courtyard. The gods, ever watchful, intervene in subtle ways. Shamash, the sun god, casts long shadows across the plains, highlighting the strength and vitality of this untamed creation. Ishtar observes with interest, knowing that the balance of Uruk itself may hinge upon the meaning of these two forces. The wilderness, a living entity in its own right, seems to anticipate the collision, as though even the rivers and forests understand the significance of what is to come. Enkidu's first encounter with civilization is cautious, almost hesitant. He spies Uruk's walls from afar, noting the laborers and the bustling market, feeling both intrigue and a quiet disapproval. Civilization is a marvel, yet it is flawed. Its order comes at the cost of freedom. Its walls protect some while constraining many. This is foreign to Enkidu, who knows only the rhythm of nature, the justice of instinct, and the clarity of life unbound by ambition. But fate, invisible yet insistent, moves him closer. A trap set for animals leads him into the city's outskirts, where he confronts hunters who seek to tame what cannot be tamed. His strength overwhelms them effortlessly, but he does not kill. He spares them, leaving a silent warning that reaches the ears of Uruk's people. The tale spreads quickly. A giant of the wilderness, untamed and unmatched, walks near the city, a shadow of freedom and power that cannot be controlled. Meanwhile, within Uruk, Gilgamesh's awareness sharpens. He senses the stirrings of a force that could rival his own, a living reflection of the strength and vitality he has never truly understood. The king, restless as always, begins to plot, not out of fear, but from a need for challenge, for confrontation, and ultimately, for companionship. For the first time, he recognizes that power alone is hollow without someone to measure it against. Night falls over the plains, and Enkidu pauses atop a rise, gazing at the distant lights of Uruk. The stars mirror the city's glow, a reminder that even the wild cannot escape the designs of destiny. Somewhere between river and reed, between shadow and light, the threads of fate tighten. Two forces, one of civilization, one of wilderness, are moving inexorably toward collision. And in that collision lies the spark that will ignite an epic, a bond that will challenge kings, gods, and the very definition of heroism. The wind carries a whisper from the city, faint but persistent. Enkidu feels it as a pulse, a call he cannot ignore. His journey, until now dictated by instinct and the rhythms of the wild, is about to change. The plains and rivers that have been his world will soon witness a force unlike any he has encountered, Gilgamesh, the king who dares to defy the gods themselves. And so, under a sky of endless stars, Enkidu begins his approach, moving toward destiny as naturally as the river moves toward the sea. The wilderness, silent witness to his every step, seems to hold its breath. Uruk, majestic and restless, waits unknowingly for the meeting that will redefine strength, loyalty, and the meaning of life itself. The walls of Uruk rise against the morning sun, casting long shadows over streets that are already alive with motion. Merchants shout, herders guide flocks, and the river glints like molten silver under the heat. But at the heart of the city, a different kind of energy pulses, an electricity born not of commerce or labor, but of destiny converging in the form of two extraordinary men. Gilgamesh, the king whose strength shakes the city, and Enkidu, the wild force of nature who has crossed the threshold of civilization, stand on the precipice of a meeting that will redefine the very essence of heroism. Their first encounter is inevitable, yet it is no simple greeting. The palace courtyard becomes a stage where earth and city collide. Enkidu, muscles coiled like springs, moves with the confidence of one born in the wilderness, eyes flashing with instinct. Gilgamesh meets him with equal force, a king who has wrestled lions, toppled walls, and challenged the heavens. They circle one another, energy crackling in the air like a storm poised to break. The first clash is violent, a test of raw strength and skill, echoing across the stone courtyards and reverberating through the alleys of Uruk. The fight, however, is more than competition, it is a dance of respect, each recognizing the other's unparalleled power. Enkidu matches the king blow for blow, neither yielding, neither faltering. Dust rises in swirling clouds around them, the sun glinting off sweat-soaked skin. The people of Uruk gather at the walls, watching in silent awe as the two titans collide. For every swing and grapple, there is a silent acknowledgement: strength alone is not enough, understanding, trust, and cunning must follow. And then, as if the gods themselves intervene, the energy shifts. What begins as confrontation evolves into camaraderie. Enkidu, sensing a kindred spirit, pauses. Gilgamesh, recognizing the same spark in his opponent, relaxes. A moment of stillness passes, a quiet eye in the storm of the city, and from that pause, a bond is forged. The king and the wild man, once adversaries, now see in one another the reflection of something greater than themselves: potential, loyalty, and the promise of adventures that stretch beyond the city walls. The newfound friendship transforms Uruk itself. Together, they walk through the bustling streets, their presence a blend of awe and exhilaration for the people. Soldiers stand straighter, merchants whisper tales of the mighty duo, and children follow at a cautious distance, their imaginations alight with dreams of courage and power. The city feels different under their joint gaze, as if the union of civilization and wilderness has breathed new life into every brick, every alley, every shadow. In the days that follow, Gilgamesh and Enkidu engage in feats of strength and cunning that blur the lines between sport and legend. They hunt lions together across the plains, moving in perfect synchrony, each testing the other, each learning in turn. Their laughter rings across the rivers, carried on the wind, a sound so alive that even the gods seem to pause in interest. The bond deepens through revelry, feasts filled with wine and song, where stories of past triumphs mingle with dreams of future conquests. Every shared challenge, every moment of trust, strengthens their unity, making them more than king and companion. They become a force of nature, a duo whose combined might shakes the boundaries of Uruk and beyond. Yet even in these moments of celebration, shadows linger. The gods watch with wary eyes, their patience tested by the audacity of mortals daring to carve their own destiny. Whispers of doom echo through the ziggurats. Ishtar observes with both curiosity and caution, noting the loyalty and courage that now binds the king and the wild man. The city itself seems to sense the change, as if Uruk understands that the bond between Gilgamesh and Enkidu will propel events that stretch far beyond its walls, into forests, mountains, and the realms of legend. The friendship also awakens within Gilgamesh a new understanding of mortality and humility. Where once he relied solely on strength and authority, he now finds guidance and trust and cooperation. Enkidu tempers the king's arrogance with instinct, his wild wisdom illuminating the fragility hidden beneath divine confidence. Together, they become more than men, they become a living embodiment of balance, the harmony of civilization and nature, ambition and restraint, power and compassion. Even as laughter and triumph fill the days, a subtle tension lingers. The friendship, powerful as it is also the catalyst for journeys that will test both men beyond anything they have faced. Whispers from distant lands speak of forests to conquer, monsters to face, and destinies to challenge. Uruk, magnificent and restless, watches as its two champions prepare to leave the familiar streets for a world that demands courage, resilience, and ingenuity unlike any they have yet known. As the sun sets behind the city walls, casting Uruk in shades of crimson and gold, Gilgamesh and Enkidu stand together atop the palace steps, overlooking the bustling city that has birthed both awe and challenge. The streets below, alive with the rhythm of everyday life, seem to echo the promise of adventures yet to come. Two spirits, once adversaries, now united, prepare to step beyond comfort and certainty, propelled by friendship, honor, and the irresistible pull of destiny. The night settles over Uruk, but the city does not sleep. Its pulse mirrors that of its greatest champions, as if every brick and river, every shadow and torch, knows that a new chapter is beginning. The story of Gilgamesh and Enkidu, once solitary, now moves as one, a force that will shake the foundations of the known world and carry their legend across time itself. A crimson dawn stretches across the plains beyond Uruk, the horizon alive with the promise of adventure. Dust swirls beneath the hooves of Gilgamesh's steeds, while the trees whisper secrets of lands untouched by kings or cities. Today, the air itself hums with tension, as if the world holds its breath in anticipation. The king and the wild man, now bound by friendship and shared purpose, set their eyes on a place both sacred and perilous, the cedar forest, home to monsters, divine guardians, and the scent of immortality itself. The journey begins along winding rivers and shifting sands, the landscape a living, breathing challenge. Each step carries the weight of legend, each rustle of leaves a warning. Gilgamesh, towering and commanding, senses the forest's aura of mystery, while Enkidu moves with the grace and caution of one born in untamed lands. Together, they are a force of human and wild, intellect and instinct, courage and raw strength. The wind carries a faint hum, a reminder that the gods watch from afar, intrigued and cautious, as mortals dare to trespass upon the sacred. The forest looms like a living cathedral, trees taller than towers, their crowns entangling with the clouds. Light filters in jagged beams, striking the mossy floor, illuminating twisted roots and the glint of hidden rivers. Birds call warnings in unfamiliar tones, shadows stretch unnaturally across the undergrowth, making every step a test of perception. Here, the natural world is no mere backdrop, it is a sentient opponent, one that measures the courage and resolve of those who dare enter. Their quest is clear: confront Humbaba, the guardian appointed by the god Enlil, whose breath brings pestilence and whose roar shakes the forest to its foundations. But the journey is as much within as without. Gilgamesh, for all his strength, confronts his mortality with every stride. The echoes of his past tyranny, his hubris, and his longing for immortality weigh upon him. Enkidu, wild and instinctive, tempers the king's impulses, reminding him that courage must be coupled with wisdom, and that victory demands unity as much as power. The first encounter with Humbaba is sudden. A roar, deafening and resonant, shakes the forest floor as if the earth itself trembles in fear. Trees bend, rivers ripple, and the very air seems to quiver. Gilgamesh and Enkidu pause, measuring the magnitude of the challenge. The guardian appears, immense and terrifying, a creature of bark, teeth, and eyes like molten gold. Every movement exudes threat, every growl carries the weight of the god's decree. Yet they do not falter. Their bond, forged through rivalry and trust, fuels their courage. The battle unfolds like a storm. Gilgamesh strikes with precision, Enkidu counters with raw, untamed force, and the clash echoes across the forest like thunder. Branches splinter, dust rises in clouds, and rivers churn with the tremors of their struggle. Humbaba's roar shakes the leaves from the tallest trees, but together, the two friends press forward, anticipating each movement, reacting with a synchrony born of shared respect and understanding. The forest itself seems to bend under their will, yet never yields entirely, a reminder that even the bravest heroes must contend with forces greater than themselves. Victory comes, but it is not without cost. Humbaba falls, his body a tangle of roots and shadow, and the forest trembles in mourning and respect. The gods murmur in the heavens, Enlil's anger simmers beneath the clouds, a silent warning of consequences yet to unfold. Gilgamesh, standing above the fallen guardian, feels the first tangible brush with immortality's illusion. Power and triumph are fleeting, and the forest, ancient and eternal, reminds him that no mortal can escape the inevitability of death. In the quiet that follows, the two friends pause, their breaths heavy, muscles taut, and eyes scanning the sacred grove. The scent of cedar fills the air, rich and timeless, a reminder that life, like these trees, stretches beyond human grasp. Enkidu, attuned to the rhythm of nature, senses the forest's subtle warning: immortality is not a gift to be seized, it is a lesson to be understood. Gilgamesh listens, yet his thoughts drift to the walls of Uruk, to the people who admire him, to the fleeting nature of glory itself. The journey back is subdued, the tension replaced with reflection. Every step through the forest is a meditation, every glance at the towering cedars a reminder that life and death are intertwined, and that heroism is measured not only in strength but in wisdom and restraint. The rivers reflect the golden light of the sinking sun, and the wind carries the stories of the fallen guardian, the trees, and the friendship that now defines Gilgamesh and Enkidu. By the time they return to Uruk, the city glows in the evening light, its walls and streets welcoming yet indifferent to the trials of its champions. Yet the impact of their journey ripples outward. The people whisper of deeds that border on legend, priests murmur of the king's audacity, and the ziggurats seem to shimmer with divine attention. The bond between Gilgamesh and Enkidu has grown stronger, tempered in the fires of battle and the quiet revelations of the sacred forest. But the quest also leaves an unspoken tension. Triumph over Humbaba is not mere conquest, it is a confrontation with mortality itself, a test that reveals the limits of human ambition. Gilgamesh glimpses the fragile thread that binds life and legend, and in that moment, he begins to understand that the pursuit of immortality is as perilous as any battle. Enkidu, ever grounded in the rhythms of the natural world, remains the tether to reality, reminding the king that even gods themselves respect the laws of life and death. As night falls over Uruk, the city seems to hum with anticipation. The walls glow under torchlight, the river glints silver, and the people sleep unaware that their king and his companion have walked the boundary between mortality and myth. The epic is far from over, challenges loom larger, adventures stretch further, and the shadow of mortality grows longer. Yet in that shadow lies the spark of greatness, the promise that heroism is forged in courage, friendship, and the quiet understanding of life's fleeting beauty. The winds carry the scent of cedar and the distant echo of the guardian's roar, a reminder that the world itself is alive, watching, and waiting. Gilgamesh and Enkidu stand together at the edge of the forest, gazes fixed toward the horizon, ready to face whatever destiny has yet to unfold. Their bond, tested and proven, will guide them through trials that will challenge not only their strength but their very understanding of life, death, and the enduring legacy of heroism. The moon casts a silver pall over Uruk, and the city sleeps under a sky littered with stars, indifferent to the turmoil about to unfold. Within the palace walls, Gilgamesh stands restless, the echoes of the cedar forest still alive in his mind, but the triumph of victory is tainted with unease. Enkidu, his companion, his mirror of strength and instinct, has grown quiet in recent days, shadows under his eyes, a subtle withdrawal from the vitality that once defined him. The pulse of the city seems to sense it too, each lamp, river, and stone carrying a whispered tension. Enkidu falls ill, struck not by sword or bow but by the silent decree of the gods. Shamash's sun rises over Uruk as a city unaware that its brightest flame is dimming. The wild man, once untamed and unstoppable, weakens day by day. His laughter, which once shook the palace halls, now barely stirs the air. His eyes, still fierce, flicker with pain and frustration at a fate he cannot wrestle into submission. Gilgamesh watches helplessly, his divine strength powerless before the inevitability of mortality. The city becomes a theater of grief. Courtyards and alleys, usually alive with shouts and commerce, are muted with an unspoken dread. Citizens whisper in hushed tones about the bond between king and wild man, fearful that even Uruk's greatest ruler may be unable to hold back the tide of fate. The ziggurats, monumental and eternal, seem to lean with sorrow, their shadows stretching long across the sleeping streets. In his final moments, Enkidu speaks with the clarity of one who has walked the wilderness and touched the edges of life itself. He reminds Gilgamesh of humility, of the fleeting nature of power, and of the responsibility that comes with strength. Every word strikes like a hammer, forging understanding through grief. He recounts dreams and omens, the messages of gods and the wisdom of forests, rivers, and beasts. Gilgamesh listens, stricken and silent, absorbing the weight of mortality in a way no battle or conquest ever demanded. The day comes when Enkidu breathes his last. The silence of the palace is deafening. Even the city's markets seem to pause, a hush falling like a blanket over the streets and walls. Birds freeze mid-flight, the wind holds its breath, and the stars themselves seem to flicker in mourning. Gilgamesh stands over his friend, shoulders trembling beneath the armor of kingship, confronting the raw, unflinching truth: death does not bend for kings, and even divine blood cannot shield one from the inexorable shadow. Grief transforms into resolve. In the days that follow, Gilgamesh moves through Uruk like a man half present, haunted by memories of laughter, battle, and shared victories. He walks the streets with a gaze that pierces the everyday rhythms of the city, as if searching for wisdom in the bricks, the river, and the people themselves. Uruk, once a city defined by ambition and order, now mirrors its king's mourning, proud, magnificent, yet vulnerable to the tides of fate. The death of Enkidu becomes a turning point, a dark mirror reflecting the fragility of life, even for heroes. Gilgamesh feels the weight of kingship more acutely than ever, realizing that legacy cannot be measured solely in walls built or beasts defeated, but in the bonds forged and the lives touched. The wild man's absence leaves a void, a silence that reverberates through the ziggurats, along the riverbanks, and in the whispers of Uruk's citizens. Haunted by this loss, Gilgamesh turns his gaze outward, beyond the walls of Uruk, toward horizons uncharted. The shadow of death looms large, a reminder that the city, his power, and even his two-thirds divinity cannot escape the laws of the universe. This grief, heavy and relentless, becomes the catalyst for the king's next journey, a quest not for glory, but for understanding, a pursuit of truths that lie beyond the reach of mortals and gods alike. At night, the palace feels empty. Torches flicker along the corridors, casting elongated shadows across stone floors. The wind carries faint echoes of Enkidu's laughter and footsteps, memories that haunt every chamber and courtyard. Gilgamesh, alone yet burdened with responsibility, confronts a world that has become both vast and terrifying in its silence. He understands, finally, that mortality is a lesson as sharp and unyielding as any weapon, and that the shadow of death is the crucible in which true heroism is forged. The city of Uruk, magnificent and eternal in its walls, senses this shift. Its pulse mirrors that of its king, restless, haunted, and driven by an unspoken need to reach beyond the ordinary, to confront the mysteries of life and death. The river glimmers under the moonlight, carrying reflections of the past, and the ziggurats loom like silent witnesses, bearing the weight of grief and the promise of journeys yet to come. From the depths of sorrow rises the resolve that will define the epic. Gilgamesh, now marked by loss, prepares to step into the unknown, driven by a question that will consume him: can a mortal ever truly touch eternity? The city sleeps, unaware, but the winds whisper of a hero who will seek answers from the very edges of the world, carrying with him the memory of a friend who was more than companion. He was the measure of courage, loyalty, and the fragile brilliance of life itself. The shadow of Enkidu lingers over Uruk, over the river, and over the king. And in that shadow, Gilgamesh's journey transforms from conquest into quest, from triumph into understanding, as the first true hero of history confronts the unyielding reality that even greatness cannot escape the hand of fate. The first light of dawn spills over Uruk, but its golden rays fail to touch the shadows that cling to Gilgamesh. The city, magnificent in its ordered glory, now feels confining, a cage for a king who has tasted both friendship and loss. Enkidu's death has hollowed the heart of Uruk's greatest ruler, leaving him restless, haunted, and driven by a single, consuming question: how can a mortal confront the inevitability of death, and is there a path to immortality? He sets out alone, crossing plains where the wind scours the earth into dust and rivers shine like ribbons of liquid silver. Every step carries the weight of grief and purpose. Uruk fades behind him, its walls and ziggurats shrinking into the horizon, replaced by a wilderness both beautiful and indifferent. Mountains rise like jagged teeth, forests whisper with unseen life, and deserts stretch with merciless vastness. The world outside the city is raw, untamed, and relentless, a mirror to the turmoil within Gilgamesh himself. The king seeks Utnapishtim, the immortal man who survived the great flood and holds the secret of everlasting life. His journey takes him to the very edges of the known world, where storms rage with the fury of gods and the sun burns with the intensity of truth. Each challenge tests his strength, endurance, and mind. Mountains block his path, rivers surge against him, and strange, uncharted lands offer both wonder and peril. Yet with every trial, he presses on, driven by the echo of Enkidu's voice, a reminder that mortality is a shadow he cannot ignore. The journey is also internal. Gilgamesh wrestles with memories of friendship, triumph, and arrogance, questioning the very nature of heroism. He remembers the laughter and strength of Enkidu, the bows fought together, and the wisdom the wild man carried from the earth and rivers. These memories fuel his resolve, tempering his fury with insight, shaping him into a seeker not merely of life, but of understanding. The landscapes he traverses, the jagged cliffs, the dark forests, the endless deserts, become reflections of his inner struggle, magnificent, daunting, and filled with uncertainty. Along the way, he encounters creatures and signs of the divine, serpents that glide with silent menace, forests that seem to shift with consciousness, and skies that blaze with celestial warning. Each encounter reminds him that the world is alive in ways both terrifying and instructive. Nature is no passive backdrop, it is a living canvas of challenge and revelation, testing his courage and humility. The forces he confronts are mirrors of mortality itself, powerful, indifferent, and eternal. In one of the most harrowing moments, Gilgamesh faces the twin mountains that guard the passage to Utnapishtim. Winds howl like the cries of forgotten gods, and the cliffs gleam with ice and stone, unyielding to man or beast. Yet the king, remembering the bond of friendship that once anchored him, draws on a resilience he did not know he possessed. With every step, he overcomes not only the physical barriers but the weight of despair and doubt, proving that heroism is forged in persistence as much as in strength. When he finally reaches the dwelling of Utnapishtim, the immortal man stands as both gatekeeper and mirror. Time has shaped him, yet he remains untouched by its decay. Gilgamesh's presence is a storm of grief, hope, and longing, and the immortal man's gaze penetrates to the heart of his quest. Here, at the end of the world, Gilgamesh confronts truths that no battle or conquest could reveal. Immortality is not a gift to be seized, but a lesson to be understood, and the measure of life lies not in its duration, but in its depth, connections, and courage. Utnapishtim recounts the flood, the survival of life itself, and the fragile balance between gods and mortals. Every word carries weight, every pause resonates with the inevitability of fate. Gilgamesh listens, absorbing the knowledge that human life, though fleeting, is charged with meaning precisely because it ends. Immortality is revealed not as conquest over death, but as legacy, the echoes of deeds, stories, and bonds that transcend the limits of a single lifespan. Even as wisdom dawns, Gilgamesh faces one final test, a plant that promises renewal and vitality, a fleeting glimpse of what humans covet most. He retrieves it with care, hope shimmering in his chest, yet fate intervenes with quiet cruelty. A serpent steals the gift while he rests, leaving him with the realization that the eternal cannot be grasped through force alone. The moment is both bitter and clarifying, teaching that life's beauty lies not in avoiding death, but in embracing the fleeting, the tangible, and the meaningful. The journey back to Uruk is both somber and transformative. Every mile carries a new understanding, strength and courage, while admirable, or incomplete without wisdom and compassion, life, though finite, gains depth from connection, friendship, and legacy. Gilgamesh, withered and changed, traces the paths of rivers and mountains that once seemed insurmountable, now familiar as the lessons he has learned. The wilderness itself seems to acknowledge his growth, winds softening, rivers reflecting a golden glow, and forests whispering in recognition of a hero tempered by mortality. As Uruk reappears on the horizon, the city welcomes him not merely as a king, but as a man profoundly altered by the edges of the world. The walls, ziggurats, and streets carry the pulse of life he now understands, fragile, fleeting, yet eternal in the stories and bonds that endure. The epic has carried him across mountains, forests, rivers, and deserts, leaving behind the naive arrogance of youth and shaping a hero who grasps the weight of existence itself. Gilgamesh's eyes scan Uruk, the city he rules, the people he protects, and the memories of a friend lost to fate. The journey to the ends of the earth has not granted him immortality, but it has given something perhaps more profound, the knowledge that mortality is the forge in which true heroism is created, and that a life lived with courage, loyalty, and love can echo far beyond the fleeting passage of time. The night settles over Uruk, stars mirrored in the Tigris, as the city pulses quietly beneath the weight of history and destiny. Gilgamesh, once driven by fear and ambition, now carries the calm yet unshakable force of understanding. The journey to the ends of the earth has ended, but the echoes of that voyage, its lessons, grief, and triumph, will ripple across the city, the river, and the generations that will follow, shaping not only the legacy of a king, but the very notion of heroism itself. Uruk rises on the horizon like a jewel set against the dust and gold of the plains. Its mud brick walls, gleaming in the morning sun, stretch wider than the eye can see, a testament to human ambition and the skill of countless hands. The city hums with life, markets bristle with color, children dart between carts, and the river glints like liquid light, reflecting the pulse of a civilization that thrives under the gaze of gods and kings alike. Yet for Gilgamesh, the city appears both familiar and transformed, seen through eyes that have touched the edges of mortality and walked the boundary between life and legend. The journey back from the ends of the earth has left him altered, tempered by grief, triumph, and revelation. He carries with him not immortality, but understanding, the knowledge that strength alone cannot shape the eternal. Where once he measured himself in feats of power, he now sees his legacy in bricks and rivers, stories and walls, the heartbeat of Uruk itself. Every alley, every market stall, every ziggurat reflects the fragile brilliance of civilization, a reflection of human ambition tempered by mortality. The king turns to the walls that define Uruk, enormous structures of clay and labor that hold the city together and protect it from the chaos beyond. To others, they are merely fortifications, impressive yet functional. To Gilgamesh, they are monuments to perseverance and collaboration, symbols that even mortal hands can reach toward greatness. He walks the ramparts, tracing the outlines of towers and gates with a reverent gaze, understanding at last that true heroism lies not only in battles or quests but in the lasting mark left on the world, in the care for those who will inherit it. He recalls the laughter of Enkidu, the wild man whose strength and instinct tempered the king's own arrogance. That memory is both balm and fuel, reminding him that human connection is the measure of power. He inspects the city's streets and canals, watching as laborers, merchants, and children move through the rhythm of daily life. Every smile, every shared glance, every murmured blessing carries weight, the weight of the ordinary made extraordinary by care, courage, and legacy. Gilgamesh's thoughts turn to the lessons learned from the cedar forest, from Umbaba's roar, and from the flood survivor, Utnapishtim. He recognizes the fragility of life, the inevitability of death, and the importance of deeds that outlive one's mortal span. The city itself becomes a canvas for this understanding, temples, walls, and canals etched into the landscape as enduring markers of human endeavor. The pulse of Uruk is no longer simply the pulse of a king or a people, it is the pulse of history itself, a living testament to the choices, courage, and compassion of those who shape it. As he walks, the people of Uruk notice the change. Whispers ripple through the marketplaces. The king who once sought only glory now surveys the city with patience, wisdom, and care. Soldiers salute with quiet respect, traders nod in acknowledgement, children watch with awe, sensing that the king carries the weight of stories far beyond their walls. Even the priests, who long guided Gilgamesh with prophecy and counsel, recognize a transformation, a mortal who has confronted the vastness of existence and returned to teach the city the subtle power of enduring legacy. The Tigris, winding through the heart of Uruk, mirrors the lessons of the king's journey. Its waters are both constant and changing, reflecting the sky above while moving inexorably forward. Gilgamesh walks along its banks, imagining the future generations who will drink from its waters, trade upon its currents, and dream beneath its reflection. Each stone, each canal, each whispering reed carries the imprint of human endeavor, immortal in its own way, a reminder that even in death, life leaves marks that ripple through time. The walls, the temples, the markets, they all speak a language Gilgamesh now understands. Endurance, collaboration, and foresight are the true measures of greatness. A hero's legacy is not in escaping death, but in shaping a world that persists beyond it. The city, vibrant yet fragile, stands as witness to his journey, a living testament to the balance between ambition and humility, power and wisdom, mortality and enduring influence. Night falls over Uruk, and the city glows under the light of 1,000 torches. Gilgamesh ascends the highest ziggurat, overlooking the pulse of life below. The streets, canals, and walls stretch in geometric perfection, alive with human endeavor. For the first time, he feels the weight of achievement tempered by understanding, the quiet power of a legacy that will outlast even the gods' watchful gaze. Enkidu's memory whispers in the wind, a reminder that companionship, courage, and loyalty shape greatness as much as strength or conquest. In this final reflection, the king sees Uruk not merely as a city, but as a living story, a monument to human resilience and the enduring rhythm of life. He understands that the epic is not only his own journey but the heartbeat of those who follow, the pulse of generations yet unborn. Every stone, every street, every torch carries the mark of human ambition, courage, and care, a legacy that death cannot erase. And so, under the starlit sky, with the city breathing quietly beneath him, Gilgamesh embraces a truth the gods had long withheld. Immortality is not a gift of eternal life, but a measure of deeds, stories, and bonds that endure. The king, once restless and mortal, now carries the quiet, unyielding power of understanding, leaving behind a legacy carved in walls, rivers, and hearts, a testament that true heroism resonates far beyond the fleeting shadow of mortality. The dawn over Uruk is soft and golden, casting light on walls that have witnessed the rise of kings, the laughter of friends, and the tremors of grief. The city moves with quiet rhythm, unaware that its greatest hero now walks not only as a man but as a legend, a figure whose story will ripple across centuries. Gilgamesh surveys the streets from the palace terraces, the river glinting like molten silver below, and feels the weight and clarity of the journey that has brought him here. The shadows of mortality linger, yet they no longer suffocate him. They have shaped him, refined him, and left him with a wisdom that outlasts mere life. In the temples, priests whisper of the king who sought the ends of the earth, who faced gods, monsters, and mortality itself, and returned transformed. Minstrels and scribes begin to capture his deeds in tablets of clay, etching the epic for those who will come after. The story of Gilgamesh and Enkidu, of forests conquered, floods survived, and truths learned, begins to transcend time, becoming more than history. It becomes myth, a mirror reflecting human courage, loss, and the longing to touch eternity. The city itself becomes a testament to his growth. Walls gleam with stability and vision, canals flow with life, and markets pulse with purpose. Gilgamesh's understanding of leadership has shifted. He rules not solely through power, but through wisdom, respect, and care for the people who sustain the heartbeat of Uruk. The pulse of civilization, once secondary to his pursuit of glory, is now intimately connected to his sense of self, a living monument as enduring as the ziggurats that pierce the sky. Beyond the city, the wilderness, rivers, and mountains that shaped his journey remain timeless, silent witnesses to trials that tested mortal limits. The echoes of Enkidu, lost to fate but immortal in memory, linger in wind and river, a reminder that companionship and loyalty define heroism as much as strength or conquest. Gilgamesh walks among both city and wilderness, a bridge between worlds, carrying lessons that even the gods observe with quiet awe. The tablets and stories that will preserve his legend are not merely chronicles of battles won or monsters slain, they are the codification of human aspiration, grief, and understanding. Gilgamesh's quest reveals that the pursuit of immortality is not a denial of death but an embrace of life's fleeting brilliance, the way deeds, love, and courage resonate long after flesh has returned to dust. Each word etched, each tale told, carries forward the heartbeat of heroism, allowing future generations to witness the forging of a king who became more than a man. And so, the epic concludes not with an end, but with resonance. Uruk thrives, a city of stone, river, and human spirit, illuminated by the lessons of a king who understood that mortality is the crucible of greatness. The story of Gilgamesh, once mortal, now immortal in memory, pulses through the ages, a narrative of strength tempered by wisdom, ambition balanced by loyalty, and the enduring power of friendship. The sun sets over the plains, turning the Tigris to molten gold and the walls of Uruk to fire. Torches flare along streets and ziggurats, flickering like the heartbeat of the city itself. The wind whispers across the river, carrying stories of adventure, grief, and triumph, of a king who sought the impossible and returned with truth. Gilgamesh stands upon the highest terrace, the city sprawled beneath him, feeling the quiet echo of destiny fulfilled and the promise of legends yet to inspire. Even as centuries pass, the tale endures. From Mesopotamia to distant lands, scribes, poets, and storytellers will echo the epic, weaving the threads of heroism, mortality, and wisdom into the fabric of human imagination. Gilgamesh becomes not only a historical figure, but a symbol, a testament to the human capacity for courage, love, loss, and understanding. Through him, the eternal pulse of civilization, the wildness of nature, and the inevitability of fate converge, creating a story that cannot fade. In the twilight of Uruk, the city breathes as it has for generations, alive with people, river, and stone. But in the hearts and minds of those who hear the tale, a spark remains, the courage to confront mortality, the wisdom to embrace it, and the understanding that heroism is measured not by escaping death, but by the echoes left behind. Gilgamesh, man, myth, and the first hero, watches from memory's horizon, eternal in story, immortal in legend.